but we're going to have to see whether or not we can get a deal or not. My only question is why we keep on trying to short-circuit the actual negotiations. When they're we're not disarming. We're not getting rid of our nuclear weapons. We're not getting rid of our Navy. We're not giving anything up. We are simply waiting to see what it is that the negotiators come up with, and if, in fact, we are able to come up with something that works, then we'll know. And you know, with respect to the Supreme Leader, yes, it's a pretty important title. It's, you know, seems a little more clear-cut than president. On the other hand, there may be ways of structuring a final deal that satisfy their pride, their optics, their politics, but meet our core practical objectives. And that's what we've got to give the negotiators room to determine. Last question, Karen DeYoung. Where's Karen? There she is.
Thank you. Just to belabor the point on that question, Mr. President, your people have said that the framework agreement, that what's in it stands, that they are not renegotiable points, although the implementation of them can be renegotiated in some way. And I wonder how, within that framework that's already been agreed, how we can come up with something that satisfies the kinds of concerns that he raised. No inspection of military sites, immediate lifting of all sanctions the day that the thing is signed. And also on Cuba, I wanted to ask, as you discussed the state sponsor of terrorism list with President Castro, the Cubans have raised some issues about the 45-day waiting period. I wondered if that came up. I know that your government is eager, assuming that the recommendation is approved, is to remove it and is approved by you, that we move ahead quickly with embassies. The Cubans have raised concerns about that 45 days and how something could go wrong in those 45 days, and it really doesn't give them access to the kinds of things they think they can have once if and when they're removed from the list. Did that come up, and is it your belief that once they're removed from the list, then there is no impediment to go ahead with opening embassies, once you approve their removal from the list?
Okay. I'll make one last run at Iran here. There is a political framework, the outlines of which were established between Iran and the P5+1. In some cases, there was great specificity around, for example, the reductions that need to take place in the number of centrifuges in Natanz, or the conversion of Fordow into a facility that does not permit the potential production of weapons-grade uranium. And in other cases, there was language of intent, but the details matter. And how those details are interpreted are going to be subject to negotiation. So it's not accurate to suggest that, and I don't think my team has ever suggested that somehow everything's all done and it's just a matter of writing it up. This is a situation in which we have a framework that is, if implemented, powerful and will achieve our goal of making sure that Iran doesn't have a nuclear weapon. But the details make a big difference, how they're structured. And I guarantee you there will be some tough negotiations around that. And that's what I said the first day when we announced that we had an agreement. And that's what we've continued to say. So there's really no contradiction here. And keep in mind that when we started this process off, even with the interim agreement, when we signed the JPOA way back at the beginning of this whole thing, there was a similar back and forth in terms of interpretation of how this was going to be implemented. And, you know, the Iranians were saying that's not true, and we were saying this. But once we actually got through the negotiations, it turned out that we had something that was substantial, that was subject to review by everybody involved, and that has proven to be highly effective, even by the assessments of critics of the policy like the Israelis. They've said, yeah, this actually has worked. Iran's abided by the agreement. In fact, now they're suggesting, why don't we just stay here? It's worked so well, despite the fact that they had made almost the precise same argument they're making now about the final deal. But, you know, consistency is the hobgoblin of narrow minds. Cuba. I will tell you, we did not get into the level of detail, Karen, that you just described, and I'm impressed with how many details you seem to be aware of. You know, as I said before, the state sponsor of terrorism recommendation will be coming to me. I will read it. I'll review it. There's a process whereby, if in fact I accept those recommendations, Congress has an opportunity to review it as well, and it will be there for people to see. I think that the concerns around the embassy are going to be mostly on the Cuban side. They haven't dealt with an American embassy in Cuba in quite some time. And, you know, changing in this way is, I'm sure, an unsettling process. You know, we're accustomed to this. I mean, we've gone through now a number of times where with China and with Vietnam and other countries, we reopened diplomatic relations, and we understand, I think, are familiar with how that gets done in a way that's consistent with improving diplomatic relations over the long term. This is probably a more profound shift for them than it is for us. But we stand ready to move forward. We're confident that it can lead to an improved dialogue, and our bottom line in the end is that it can lead to an improved set of prospects for the Cuban people. And I'll say just in closing to you know, all the people here from Latin American countries, thank you for this extraordinary opportunity. I want to thank the people of Panama. I am very optimistic about this region, and the main reason I'm optimistic about this region is because of its people. They are extraordinary, and it is a great gift to the United States to be able to have such strong friends and partners in tackling many of the challenges that we have in common. Thank you very much.
There you have it, a lengthy press conference from the President of the United States following a historic meeting today in Panama at the Summit of the Americas with Cuban President Raul Castro. I want to discuss it with my panel. Julian Zelizer, presidential historian, is with me here as we top the hour, 7 o'clock Eastern. Also with me here, Buck Sexton, former CIA counterterrorism analyst and also a conservative strategist. Let me just highlight some of the things that the president said, and then we'll discuss it. The president saying that we continue to stand up strongly for democracy and human rights, also calling this a turning point in U.S. relations with Cuba. The president also saying that he had a candid and fruitful conversation with Raul Castro. We know that conversation lasted just about 12 minutes, but also highlighting the human rights concerns and saying that the United States is not giving up on those issues, but also is pressing forward. Another thing I do want to highlight here, we had expected that the president may announce in this press conference that the United States would remove Cuba as a state sponsor of terrorism from its list. He has said he has not yet studied that recommendation from the State Department because he has been traveling so much. He wants to fully study that before making any decision on that front. So let me go to you, gentlemen, to you, Julian Zelizer, your takeaway from this in terms of Cuba and what the president had to say.
Well, in terms of Cuba, he said exactly what we thought. He outlined that he thought this was a broken policy. He's trying to do something different that will achieve new relations with the Cuban people, that will create room for new kind of regional alliances, including on environmental issues, which I'm not sure everyone saw coming, but also said that there is no final deal at this point. He's still concerned about human rights And in many ways, this is a work in progress that will have more of an impact on the Cubans than on the U.S. The questions actually turned primarily to Iran, which I think says a lot about where the politics are. He also talked, by the way, about partisanship. He unleashed on Senator McCain and Mitch McConnell.
And stand by, gentlemen, because I do want to play for our viewers that sound. If you missed it in this press conference, the president was asked just as much about Iran and the nuclear negotiations with Iran as he was about Cuba, which is why, a big part of why he was down there and directly following this meeting with Cuban President Raul Castro. Take a listen to what the president said really directly to John McCain and Senator Mitch McConnell in terms of Iran and where the negotiations stand.
We have Mitch McConnell trying to tell the world, don't have confidence in the U.S. government's abilities to fulfill any climate change pledge that we might make. And now we have a senator suggesting that our Secretary of State is purposely misinterpreting the deal and giving the supreme leader of Iran the benefit of the doubt in the interpretations.
Our senior White House correspondent, Jim Acosta, joins me on the phone now. Jim, you were in the room. Your reaction to that?
Well, certainly, I think it was not really any kind of mystery or secret at all that the president was going to get asked about Iran. Those comments from Ayatollah Khamenei this week when he indicated that he thought that once the deal is completed, if it's completed by the end of June 30th, that the sanctions would be lifted immediately. And I think what you heard is that there is a pressure point there for this president, and if you touch it, you're going to get a pretty strong response. And the president had some very tough comments about John McCain, questioning why he would trust the words coming from the Ayatollah versus the words coming from a decorated war veteran like Secretary of State John Kerry. That's the way the president characterized it during this press conference. But, this is an issue that is going to follow the president right into next week. As Congress comes back, hearings are going to be held. Bob Corker, the chair of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, he is going to be trying to move his legislation forward. And our vote counters at CNN, we're looking at a situation where potentially Republicans and Democrats might be able to cobble together a veto-proof majority in the event the president vetoes Bob Corker's legislation. So I think that stage has been set for a legislative battle with Capitol Hill, and we're going to see that moving forward. I do want to point out, though, that there were some other interesting moments during this press conference, Poppy. Speaking of Secretaries of State, Hillary Clinton is expected to make a big announcement tomorrow, and I thought it was quite newsworthy that the president said that he is not going to be on the ballot in 2016, and he doesn't anticipate stepping on Hillary Clinton's lines if she runs for president and when she runs for president. And that, in the coming weeks and months, it sounds as if he is going to be, potentially involved in her campaign, at least providing that kind of rhetorical support, as we heard today. So a lot of news coming out of this press conference, not necessarily on the situation with Cuba, which, by the way, all those warm words we heard from Raul Castro, I asked the president about that. The president did not say that he considers Raul Castro to be an honest man in the same way that Raul Castro said he believes President Obama is an honest man. He didn't take that bait. He didn't answer that question, but he did say that they can discuss things honestly. So I thought that was interesting as well. I did,
Jim, want to get your assessment on that, because in your question to the president, you did say to him, does he trust Raul Castro? And he didn't answer that. Did that surprise you at all?
Right. I think if he had come out and said that he trusts Raul Castro, there would have been a lot of hue and cry up on Capitol Hill, especially from the Cuban-American lawmakers up there. And especially at a time when he's being accused of trusting the Iranians too much. As my colleague over at the Associated Press, Jim Cunin, asked the president, is he biting off more than he can chew? Of course, the president is going to say no to that. He doesn't see that happening. But these are two very risky gambits that the president is in the middle of trying to execute right now. And, one being normalizing relations with Cuba. Okay, the president said that Cuba doesn't pose much of a threat to the United States. There's no policy of regime change for the Castros anymore, at least in the president's mind. And so he feels like he can move that ball forward. But in terms of the nuclear deal with Iran, that is a very thorny issue for this president. There is no guarantee he's going to be able to pull this off by the end of June. And so it does put his legacy on the line. I thought it was fascinating during this press conference, Poppy, when the president, was saying that, the possibility of trying to have Iran, with no nuclear program whatsoever,